All right, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight for this special virtual presentation from the Buffalo Association of Black Journalists. This is our second Third Thursdays event, which, if you don't know, on the third Thursday of each month, we do an event just celebrating community, culture, all things Black Buffalo. The Buffalo Association of Black Journalists is really looking to be engaged in the community, and what better way to celebrate Women's History Month with three true history makers in Buffalo's journalism scene. Not just the Black journalism scene, but Buffalo journalism altogether. Their work supersedes any any sort of, race or gender or any of those things, These are really dynamic women. We're so proud to do this. This panel is called Sharing Her Story. So it's not about history, it's about her story. We have three amazing stories here. Just a very quick introduction before I let these ladies share their stories in their own words. Our three panelists, starting with Sheila Brown, media pioneer and owner of WUFO Radio, the first Black woman in New York State and the youngest Black woman in New York State to own a radio station. Claudine Ewing from WGRZ Channel 2 News. Since 1998, she has been with the station, started her career in radio, and over the years has won many, many awards, including Emmys, is now the anchor of the illustrious 5:30 show. Thank you so much, Claudine, for being here, and also serving as president of the Buffalo Association of Black Journalists in the past. And we have Al-Nisa Banks, publisher of the Challenger News, the most widely circulated Black-owned newspaper in New York State. She has been doing the work so many years with her two amazing daughters. I'm so honored. I'm honestly kind of fangirling right now because three of you are my personal sheroes. So it is an absolute honor to have you all here in the virtual room with us tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much to our amazing panelists.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would love for you just one by one to sort of share your journey to where you are now, where you started, what brought you into the world of journalism, and just your journey over the years, and what were some of the most impactful moments for you in your careers? Whoever would like to go first, please, we would just love to hear from you.
Maybe Elnisa or Sheila
Well,
first.
We'll let our queen El-Nisa go first.
Yeah.
the oldest. Okay, so I start now.
Yes, absolutely.
This is only my second Zoom ever.
That's okay.
So here we go. I started, I guess, when I was about 12 years old, and I had my own newspaper. It was a one-pager called the Project News, and I circulated it all around. We had a total circulation of one, but the pass-on value was pretty high. So I knew then I wanted to do more in this field. And every Christmas, my parents would get me a typewriter. Well, they called them typewriters, but they were really stampers. So you would turn to the A and stamp, and you would turn to a C and stamp. But that's how I put my paper together. And so I went to Riverside High School. I did not work for the yearbook or work for the newspaper at the school. It was a different experience. When I went to Riverside High School, there were only maybe about 10 African Americans in the whole school. It was a very challenging experience. My parents had to actually come to the school to make them, to insist that they allow me to take a college entrance course of study. They wanted me to go into home ec. So with that, I went into college entrance and eventually ended up applying to go to Buff State, which I did not get in. That was interesting too, because that was before Seek, EOP, and the whole movement, the diversity movement, the thing that the felon in chief right now is just trying to do away with all around. And so didn't get into Buff State, and I had kind of like had it I was like really through with it, but I loved reading and I loved writing, and I was very good at what I did. Even in high school, I had a very high average in English and a decent average, but there was a quota system going on. I didn't want to fight it. That also was early in the game when like EEOC and all that was just getting started. And they came to our house and I just didn't want to do it. I wanted to go away. And I decided to go back to Texas where I was born and live with my grandmother. My parents, or my mom especially, could only afford a one-way ticket to Georgia. And my uncle was going to send me from Georgia to Texas. I got to Georgia and was introduced to a Black college. And I was so overwhelmed and so excited. I knew then I wanted to go to that Black college. So I came back home, got a job, applied to the school. Of course, I did get in, and that's how I got to college. So while at college, I was the editor of the school newspaper. I wrote for the college, Payne College in Augusta, Georgia, by the way, at HBCU. I was working with the journal that they put out every year, a literary journal, which freshmen never could work with the literary journal. But I actually had something published in the literary journal. And I ended up completing my studies at Payne College. And while I was there, my junior year, I worked at the Augusta Chronicle, did the college newspaper, and graduated and came back to Buffalo. Came back to Buffalo. It took me about 5 years to get a job in the media. I worked different jobs. I did work at the Courier. I worked at Channel 29 when it first came to Buffalo. I was a advertising copywriter. And so I worked with the graphics people and I worked with the audio people to put local commercials together. I did a magazine, Bad Magazine, with my beloved friend, the late Gail Wells and Michael Copeland. It was an entertainment magazine for the East Side, but always had my eye on the Challenger. And then I took a job with the state for the money, and I did have my credentials. And while working at the state, I just happened to be at my little desk. I had a title as long as my arm, but I was really a glorified secretary. And Jim Bell, we had a meeting. Jim Bell, Art Eve, and some other very important people. They went into the room and I did what my little duties outside. I was, people coming in and I would answer the phone. But when the meeting was over, everybody came out looking really strange, especially Mr. Bell. And I thought he was having a heart attack. So I asked him if I could get him something to drink, and I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "No, I'm not. I just bought that, curse word newspaper." I said, "What newspaper?" Right? He says, that Jam Challenger. And the light bulb came on. He said, "I don't know anything about newspapers. I don't know why I did it," but he was a dear friend of Art's. So I raised my hand like you're in school, and I said, "Maybe I can help you." That was 1979, 78. So for a year, I volunteered and I came down to the Challenger on Fillmore. At the time, they had one typewriter, 3 desks, and no staff, except one person who was a chain smoker, and she never left probably because she couldn't go anywhere else. But at any rate, that's what I started with, and Jim Bell as my partner. And that was my entry into the Challenger. But I did my homework on the paper once I got there. And since I was 16, I was familiar with the paper since I was 16. That's just the beginning. So that was in 1979. I came full time, and I'm still here, and that was 47 years ago.
Wow, that's
A
incredible.
long story, but that's how I got here.
That's amazing. And
Yeah.
and it's amazing. We're so very fortunate too that your journey brought you back to Buffalo because a lot of people who leave don't come back. But the fact that you saw the incentive to come back and to stay in Buffalo's journalism scene and see that you were fulfilling something that was missing was such an incredible thing. We're so happy that you're still keeping it going.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and I credit the Black College for doing that for me because we were taught we were indoctrinated to go back to our communities and work for our communities, not necessarily go to the big places and make the big money. But, of course, we thought we were revolutionaries back then anyway. So I was fighting a war to help save, my community, my people, and I believed in it. So all of the jobs that I had before gave me the skills that I needed and the skill set to improve what we already had. And that was my purpose to, what we used to say, we represent. I wanted to represent the community. And that's what we've been doing. And now my daughters are with me to continue that legacy. At some point, I guess I'll retire.
Beautiful thing. Representation matters. It is not a saying, it is the truth, and you're a testament to that.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Okay.
Thank you. So moving from print to radio, Miss Sheila Brown. Now, you have such a remarkable story as well. I was doing a little bit of homework, seeing that you started out as a, a sales personnel at WUFO, and now you own the station and you're doing so many incredible things on top of that. I would love to delve into your journey. Please tell us how you got here.
Yes, thank you so much once again for allowing me to be on the panel. Well, I am born and raised in the city of Buffalo. I'm a hometown girl. Grew up in the Hamlin Park area. Two wonderful parents, the late Charles and Frankie Holloway. Still being raised by them today, even though they are in heaven. Everything they taught, I'm still implying it every day. Went to Bennett High School. Graduate Bennett, went to ECC City and North Campus. While I was in college, I had worked at the American Red Cross. While I was at the American Red Cross, we used to do the blood banks where you would go, you would give blood, and after they gave blood, they would come to my table, which was the cookies and juice. After they get the cookies and juice, then they would sit there for a while. So the general manager at that time was Mr. Jesse Key, and they were doing a live remote, WUFO was. And he said, wow, I got a sales position open, would you be interested? And I'm like, no, I'm at the Red Cross. We got 401k. I got medical. I'm 21. I done made it, right? And I thought about it. And so I gave him a call back. And my parents and everyone thought I was crazy. Like, how are you going to leave a job for a commission-only position? Because that's all it was. Whatever I sold, that's what I got paid a percentage off of. And so I did it. And I walked into WUFO at that particular time. It was on LaSalle Avenue. And I became commission-only salesperson. And within 3 years, I surpassed my sales department. I became sales manager. So then I got a salary. I had a commission. It was going well. I did 14 years at WUFO before I left in 1998. So I did all of my early 20s at WUFO. In between that, I had got married. We had our children. And in 1998 of October, they sent in a new group of people from Pittsburgh. Anyone knows Buffalo, they know WUFO, they know the Challenger Criterion. We know our clients. We know how they pay. We know how they're structured. So they sent in this new group from Pittsburgh, and they were kind of brown-beaten our clients. And I said, my time here is kind of up. So I resigned, and I looked at the building, and I said, don't worry, baby. One day I'm going to come back and buy you. And I left for 8 years. I went into television. I went to Channel 4, stayed at Channel 4, went to another radio station. Then I left and started my own ad agency. When I started my own ad agency, I had a chance to do a little bit of everything. I had a chance to be over there with Al-Nisa for a little while at the Challenger. I did the print. I did radio. And then I had the TV with Channel 4. So one day I was in my office. I got a phone call from the Badgers at Bethesda. And they said, hey, we're bringing in this big concert. We would love for you to do the advertising for us. So I hadn't listened to WFO for 8 years because the goal was I was going back to Bayou, right? And I met with Mr. Bell at the Small Business Development Center at Buff State. I worked on my business plan. I went to banks trying to get money. You know, I'm not talking about $200,000. I'm talking about almost $500,000 that I needed. They all said, no, 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 no. Right? Kept going back, kept going back. So I ended up not listening to WFO for 8 years, but I was planning on how do you buy a radio station? How do you do it? What do you need to do? So I ended up calling the station because I had to put this advertising on for my client. And a wonderful woman answered the phone, Carol Salter Glover. Never met her before, heard of her, she heard of me. She said, oh my God, I would wish one day you would come back here and work because so many times the phone often calls and people ask for you. And I'm chuckling in my mind, like, come work, girl, I'm coming to buy it. I'm not coming to work. And so, you know, we put the ads on and she called me. She said, hey, I talked to the Davenports and they said, you can bring your ad agency and come back to work and they'll give you the same position as sales manager. I said, oh my God, is this the way you're going to get me back to the station? So I was obedient. I went back to the station, became sales manager, and I was able to keep my own ad agency. Within a year, Carol had this red spot on the back of her leg. And by that time, me and her became very, very close. And she was like, Booby, come in here, look at this. And I said, what? And it was a red spot. I said, wow, that looks like a blood clot. She said, I know, I'm gonna go to Sisters. I'm gonna check it out. And then, you know, we'll see what it is. So we were working on, at that time, the station was gonna be turning 45 years old. We were working on a big party down at the Bison Stadium. So a day go by, another day go by. So then I call her daughter and I'm like, hey, is Kira all right? She's like, yeah, she's at Sisters. I said, well, I want to come see her. So I did. And when I went up there to see her, she said, are you ready? I said, what do you mean? She said, are you ready to run the station? I'm like, oh, you're going to be fine. She said, no, I got 3 spots on my lung and 3 spots on my brain. She said her husband had already passed maybe 3-4 years of the same ailments. I think they had a cleaners. I really don't know the backstory of that. And so she never ended up coming back to the station. So within a year, I was forced in to be general manager of WUFO. Sheridan Broadcasting started selling all of their stations. Now they had powerhouse stations in Pittsburgh, a 50-watt station. They had a station in Atlanta. They had a station in Birmingham. They sold their station, their big station in Pittsburgh. They sold Birmingham. So I said, wow, this is my time to pique their interest on buying WFO. Piqued their interest the same day they said yes. I said, oh my God, I'm not ready. I don't have the money. I'm not this, that. You know, I had some wonderful parents and they did exactly what the Bible said, leave a heritage for your children, children, children. And my dad passed, worked at Ford, great. So we had a few coins. I was able to go into the bank, get a few more. I was able to talk to 2 investors, True Bethel, to see if they wanted to invest in me. I am 100% owner of my company. They get a return on the investment. And I was able to go back and purchase WUFO in 2013. And that made me the youngest radio owner in the country, unless somebody brought one today that I don't know of. And then just 3 years ago, Sheridan Broadcasting had their 1 station left in Atlanta, and I was able to acquire WIGL in Atlanta. Story is long, story is a lot, left a lot out of there, a lot of ups and downs in between, but we got there.
We got there. Wow. I think the most amazing part of that story to me is the fact you kept saying, I'm coming back to buy it. I know I'm going to be back there because I'm going to buy it. You knew it the whole time. And through not just speaking it, but putting in the work to make it happen, you did it. That is a sort of actualization that a lot of people don't even believe in themselves enough to realize. And it's almost like as a Black woman, you almost have to have the audacity to believe in yourself enough to do something like that. And that is a testament of just excellence, what true excellence looks like. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And then we, you know, first time ever AM got a translator, and now we're AM and FM station.
Oh my goodness. Now that I didn't know. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Incredible, incredible. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and on to television, our primetime lady, Miss Claudine Ewing. I'm so excited to hear about your journey. Definitely seeing your face on WGRZ. You're one of the most familiar faces and voices that we know. You are quite literally a part of so many of our families, and
Well, thank you.
you definitely have set the standard for journalism, and I'm super excited to learn more about your story, about how you've gotten to this point, and just also a personal shout out, transitioning into this role as president of the BABJ. This was one of my biggest helps and supporters right here. So thank you, Claudine, so much for all that you continue to put into this organization. And we're just so blessed to have you here tonight. So please.
Well, I'm glad to be here. So, hello, everyone. I'm glad we started with Al-Nisa because, and as well as Sheila, because my journey goes through both of them as well. So, as a little girl, my mother worked at WUFO Radio. She was a traffic manager. And as Sheila will tell you, back in the day, that's when you had like those little wooden things, like you were doing all that stuff. So as a little girl, I would always just go to the radio station from time to time. And it was something about the microphone that I enjoyed. Like, oh, you can speak into this and hear your voice. I was just fascinated by it. So that was just like the early steps, right? I think at the age of 3, I recorded a milk commercial. I think it was with Al Parker, right, Sheila, back in the day. One of
Yes.
the going all the way back. In high school, I went to the performing arts and I majored in what we call telecommunications there, and continued to hone my skills. I was more of a writer. I enjoyed writing. And so I think I was a junior or a senior in high school, and I had a chance to write my first article for print with the Buffalo Challenger under Al-Nisa Banks. And that was such a privilege. And to this day, I still have that article. It's in a box, but it's in my house, but I still have it, and I will always treasure it. So that's like how it really started, right? The writing, the radio. I went to the performing arts. And after graduating from there, I had various options of where I could have gone to college. Syracuse was my first choice. Um, and I only applied to a few schools. It was Syracuse, it was Marquette, a couple of SUNY schools, and what else? So I got the acceptance to Syracuse, so excited for it. Had enough scholarship money to cover maybe half of it. At that time, it was like $14,000, which is nothing now. And I was like, I'm not taking out a loan for $28,000 to cover 4 years. Um, and so I decided to stay home. And I went to Buffalo State, and they had a very strong broadcast journalism program at that time. I have no regrets about the decision that I made. I got to stay home. I got to do internships in my hometown. And it's something about working where you grew up, because you do know where the bodies are buried. You do know who the people are. You do know who to go to. Would it be the case if I went somewhere else eventually? Because if you're about this work, you're going to be all about the grind. You're going to get to know who the movers and shakers are. And so I believe in that. So I graduated from college, and 1 week after college, graduation, either 1 or 2 weeks right after graduation, I got my first job in radio at WBEF Radio. And it wasn't to do anything on air for the first 3 months, I don't believe. I was what they would call a ground traffic controller. So at that time, they had a traffic reporter who was actually in a helicopter, and I would be responsible for getting all of the information on the ground, making sure that the traffic reports were right. So that's what I did. But they knew that I was there. I wasn't there to just do that, but it was definitely a foot in the door. So that's one of the things I always encourage people. You don't have to start at the top. It's okay to start down at the bottom. People will recognize if you have it and you want to work hard to get to where you are. And so I appreciate my journey. So within 3 or 4 months, I believe I was doing weekend reporting at WBEN. Before that, it went to 5 days a week. It was a great career in radio, really learned a lot. And then we were in the same building at the time with Channel 4. So the news director at the time there asked if I was interested in doing television. And I was like, yeah, but I got comfortable. I really got comfortable in radio. And I'll tell you, radio is still my first love to this day. It's just that the pay isn't what it needs to be. But that's just how life goes. So I started in TV part-time while still working in radio. So I was working basically 6 days a week. Did that for a couple, maybe a year or two, and then something opened up at Channel 2. And this is where I've been and just continue to hone the skills, tell the stories that need to be told, and just being truthful about it, right? I always tell students you have to respect journalism. Everybody is not a journalist. You have to respect the craft, respect journalism with a capital J. Make sure you have ethics approach to it or attached to it, and stay true to who you are. Stay true to who you are. And that's my journey, at least part of it in a nutshell.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you. And that was the greatest piece of advice to stay true to who you are, especially when you're speaking to people who look like us, who come where we're from. You know, a lot of times conformity is something that we think is so necessary to get into the door, but to show up as our true and authentic selves is what really makes the difference. And, you know, just you, all three of you being a testament to that is something that we can all appreciate so much. So, thank you for sharing your stories. It really is incredible learning how you all got to where you are and, you know, just even a quarter of it, because I know, as you all said, you know, your stories are even more expansive than that. But I want to get into just what it really means to take up the space that you do, you know, as not just a woman, but a Black woman in journalism. I saw a study from the Pew Research Center last year that showed that only 6% of journalists in America are Black. And when you factor in gender, that number is far lower. So even though, you know, we look a lot at our Buffalo landscape and see that we could be doing better, it really makes me proud to see the representation that we do have. But even still, I and some of my female contemporaries, you know, we realize that even in 2025, we are the only person in the room that looks like us a lot of the time. So I know that is something that you all have experienced far more than you can probably even count, you know? So I want to get into what it means to be a Black woman in journalism, because sometimes, you know, I find that it seems like even more so than being Black, being a woman can work against you more in this field. It can be tough waters to navigate. So I just want to talk about, you know, what it means to be the only one in the room that looks like you and how your journey has really been putting in the work to change that.
Well, sometimes I feel, in the very beginning, when I started my career, and like I mentioned, I was at WBEN radio, and I was the only Black in the room. I was the only Black female in the room, and I was the youngest in the room. So at that radio station and at that particular time, it was a lot of older men, and it was okay because you know what? I still had something to learn from them. They've been in the game, so I need to know how they're doing it, how they were effective, how they're making it. But yet I know who I am. So what can I add to this? What can I bring to this? And I was um, focused on doing that. I think that young women of color, no matter who you are, and if you are the only one in the room, you stay true to who you are. I'm not apologizing for who I am. I am proud of who I am. We all have flaws. All of us have flaws, but we learn and we go on. We have something to offer. And I think if you can't get caught up in, well, I'm here and I don't have anything. Now, you do have something to offer because you're bringing a perspective that they don't have oftentimes in newsrooms. And it's needed because everybody is watching or listening or reading. So we need to serve everybody. So that's why long before people were saying what matters, I've always said that diversity matters. I mean, we're living at a time when most families are diverse, most families are biracial. And so we bring everybody together. So it's important that even when we're in the room, if we're in the courtroom covering a case, if we're in a newsroom where we're the only face, we stay true and stand up for who we are, and we have something to offer. Never feel that you don't have something to offer.
Amen. Amen to that. Absolutely. Would you care to weigh in, Al-Nisa, Sheila?
Well, I don't, I guess Claudine's experience is different, even though I've been in the newsrooms. I was at the Courier Express, I was at the Augusta Chronicle, but I had a slightly different mindset. It was never to go somewhere else. It was always to do something for people who look like me. So I had a different end goal, which is why when the opportunity opened up to have anything to do with the Challenger, I left my quote unquote good job with the state. And like Sheila's family, my family went nuts. They thought I was crazy for leaving that good job. I was the first one in my family to go to college. And so I had a college degree, had experience, had a good job, and I left it to come to this place because I saw the need and I wanted to make a difference. And I knew who I was, as Claudine has experienced. And I've been in those newsrooms, I've been at those tables, I've worked at the Courier. And at one point, I was in this social, they had a whole section for society. I guess they called it society weddings, real society type things. And they had never had anybody black in that section. And so I was like throwing me to the wolves, sort of. And I went there, and that was a really interesting experience. And the first thing I did was I wanted to do a story on Barbara Glover, who owned and founded Miss Barbara School of Dance. And Barbara Glover had offers on Broadway. She just could have gone anywhere, but she stayed and she built that institution for over 50 years. Barbara just retired. So I did the story on her, and I was so proud of it. I always wanted to go in the community and do stories. Well, my editors didn't believe my story. And so they wasted a lot of time trying to call New York, trying to follow up to see if she really got those offers. They really didn't want to do the story, but they couldn't disclaim it, and they had to run it. So what they did, they didn't give me my byline, which, a byline is like everything when you do a story, especially one that you love and you know it's going to impact people. But it really didn't matter because the story got out there. The story was there. So I think one of the most important things that Claudine has said a couple times about being true to yourself and knowing who you are, which is why she has so much credibility in this community. When people see and hear Claudine Ewing, they know it's the truth. And people will say to me all the time, we gotta call Claudine. Yeah, call Claudine because she's gonna tell your story. So it's really an honor to even watch her. I've knew her. She didn't know me. I knew when she was a little girl. I knew her mom. It's an honor to just see her continue to blossom. She had her eye on the prize, and a lot of time the prize is in your backyard. It's not over the rainbow. You get over the rainbow, it might be nothing but a leprechaun at the end. So, Sheila, same thing, eye on the prize, knowing who you are and serving your people. And I think that at some point, young journalists have to think outside the box as well. So if it's not working inside somebody else's box, go outside the box and figure out how you can do the same thing or impact the same thing because it helps everybody. Truth helps everybody. And the dissemination of information is so important. Our logo, part of our logo, there's three lines inside the C, and it's part of an ancient divination system, the I Ching, and it stands for skillful dissemination of information. And that's what we try to do because it's a trick every week to try to skillfully share information with a vast community. So we're read from the crackhead to the PhD. they'll pick it up and they'll read it. There's something there for everybody. And then we're able to slip in all the truth that we can every week just to help us grow and be better.
It's powerful. That accessibility is everything. And I love the fact that, you spoke on it. And I love how you talked about the importance of just the story getting out, like even the first one that didn't have your byline on it, just still the fact that it was from your hands and that that was you and the product that you put forth it's amazing, and we're definitely very, very, very
Well, it's amazing what you do as well, young lady. I know this is your show, but you are amazing as well. And I think what you're doing at the Post is just great. The work of the Post is great, and you're part of that greatness.
well, that is the biggest honor coming from you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.
So I love hearing what you all have said, especially about just being authentic and true to yourself as Black women, and not even just in journalism, but just as Black women in America. Our voices are something that we're often demonized for, we speak too loud, we're too aggressive in how we talk. When we bring the truths to the world that a lot of people are uncomfortable with, or that a lot of people don't want to say out loud, but that are so very necessary. And when you're using your voice, especially when it's within your profession, sometimes it can be, that much harder as a Black woman to really get people to understand the value in what you do, especially in the position that you're in. And that's why that support is something that's so important. And I love hearing how all three of your stories kind of overlapped in some way, and you all supported each other somewhere along the way in your respective careers, because that is something that's so necessary. A lot of times as Black women, we are the only ones we have to save ourselves, essentially, in addition to trying to save the rest of the world. So I think that's the next thing that I want to get into, especially since that's at the core of what the Buffalo Association of Black Journalists tries to do anyway, to build that network where we all can be there for one another and help each other to elevate and grow. Can you all just speak on the importance of having, even when you're not the only one in the room, just having others who are there for you, just the importance of whether it's someone to lean on, whether it's a contemporary, whether it's someone who has gone before you and can pass down that knowledge to you. Why is representation so important in our own personal journeys to have people that we identify with and can learn from? Why is community so important in something like this?
Um, I'll say as a owner, it's really important for me to be able to have where we're sharing our own narrative right now in a day and age that we're in right now. When I first came to WFO, that was one of the first things we did at 21 years old. Al Sharpton had came into town and he was doing a boycott for the Buffalo school system with T.C. Smith. And I was young, 21 years old, and I understood the importance of Black radio at that particular time. It's only 5 owners of women of Black in the country. It's a big country that we live in. And for that to be in 2025, that is still just baffled to me. So it's really important for me to always keep the talk shows on for people to share their stories, ministry, current events, whatever talk show it is, where I don't muffle their mouth and they can share whatever their truth is that they're trying to put across to our audience. And it is not another radio station where that can happen other than WUFO. And so we will always run our own narrative, whether it's in the city of Buffalo or in the city of Atlanta. And we open the doors for that, for our people to come. And I mean, it's so many times when someone's looking for a book bag or information, our thing is educating you, entertaining you on your product and service, on the zip codes that we personally carry. So when I left WFO and had a chance to go into TV, always on the sales side, and I was able to bring something that they didn't shy away from. They had never did Juneteenth Festival to be in the parade. They had never done a Martin Luther King campaign. So all the things that I was accustomed to doing at WFO, I was able to take to the white market that they never was accustomed to. And they never shied away from it, probably because I was on the radio side where I'm bringing in the money. I wasn't on the pen side. That's a difference. So for me, it has always been pretty open arms, even when I was on the corporate side, when the people didn't look like you or I. So it's always been pretty good for me, in whether I was in the corporate white world or at WFO.
I would say you were talking about diversity and why is it important? Is that what you're trying to get at? Why is it important that our voices are there?
Yeah.
Where we're going? I think it is because, I think about even where we are today and we look at our newsroom, even to this day, it's there are a handful of people of color inside. I think there are two African American females, myself, and we have a new reporter who's been with us for about a year, Alyssa Quazell, and I just absolutely adore her work ethic and what she's bringing to the table. She reminds me of me when I was like 21, just focus on the grind, knows how to handle herself. And I think that's so important that when we see that, we support it because somebody has to teach the next. For me, I had a Sandy White that I could look at and be like, oh my goodness, there's Sandy White on TV. It's so nice to see somebody who looks like you or somebody who relates to what you're doing. And so I think what I've also tried to do is just take it another step and make sure that some of the stories we tell are stories that aren't being told. Nobody can tell our stories from our community like us. Al-Nisa, would you agree? Like nobody can do it like us because we've either lived it or we know it. And so it's important to have that voice there. Um, there are stories that will come our way, and I know for certain that some people have said, "Oh, that's not a story." And I'm like, that's a story." Well, no, why is it a story? And I'm like, put yourself in this person's shoes. If you don't have that lived experience or you don't know somebody who's lived that experience, you don't have to have gone through everything, then you probably don't even understand it. And then in the end, we're not only helping ourselves, but we're helping others get to know another culture. And so that's important for what we do, and that's why diversity is so important because we're helping ourselves, but we're also educating the masses.
Yeah, diversity is critical, Claudine. You're so right. But sometimes we get in these positions and we forget who we are. And so we're not helping the situation at all. In fact, we could be harming it. So when you have a set goal and you are confident in what you're trying to do and you know it's the right thing, and your goal can't always just be to rise to the top, what happens when you get to the top? What happens when you get to the top? So, and not that you have to stay at the bottom, but you have to stay, again, to use your phrase, true to yourself and who you are. So you go into these positions being the only one or the only two or three one with that confidence and with you have a goal, you have a responsibility, actually. That's the way we were taught when I was in college and, out doing voter registration and the whole nine. And these are critical times now, and our voice is even more critical. It's this whole DEI thing or die or DIE, you know, it's we got to pay attention and we have to do better. We can't be afraid to do the right thing. So depends on how you go in. How you go in is the way you're going out.
That's poignant, and that's so very true. And When you look at, I love the fact that you mentioned DEI because this is something that as Black people we were doing before DEI was even a thing. And like you said, when you go in, you have to really represent and stay true to who you are. It's not enough to just take up space and be a
The
Black face in the
first part.
forefront if you're really not telling those stories, like you said, like Claudine said, like Sheila said, the stories that are essential to our community. I can definitely relate at having to go to bat with my editors who, in different news stations who I'm sure you can guess don't look like me about, well, why is this important? Why is this a story? If you don't come from the community and if you don't have that lived experience, then of course you wouldn't know. And that's why it is up to us to bring to light, these important issues. And I'm so proud to share space with all of you, both caring enough about the city and about your Blackness in the Black community to tell the stories that really elevate our culture, our city culture so much. It's with, undying gratitude, truly.
It's a
So,
win-win. It's a win-win when we do that because the ignorance is amazing, and we have to help turn that light bulb on, and then it helps everybody, which is why it's so scary that they're trying to take our history out of the schools. They're trying to actually erase our history, which is important to this country's history. So we have so much work to do. We have a lot of work to do, but we have to have our heads straight and we have to have our consciousness clear so that we can make a difference. Because if you're just there to make the money, to rise to the top or to be head Negro in charge, it's not going to help anybody, not even you, in the end.
amen. So very true. Black history is American history and
Mhm.
is
Very much American history. We the bedrock.
yes.
You know,
To throw a phrase my mother throws around all the time, we built this country.
we right.
So
Yeah, we had a little bit to do with it.
yeah, to put it very, very lightly. So I could probably go on forever with questions, but because we are winding down, I do want to open the floor to our guests, everyone in the room with us tonight. If you have any questions or comments for these three incredible women here, I would love to just open up the floor. Anyone feel free to unmute your mic and chime in. We want to keep this conversation going.
I
Oh,
just want to say thank you for sharing your story. I'm aware of each one of you and have admired what you've done in your profession, in your community, and in the lives of so many others. But to hear you tell your story orally, verbally, it's a story that needs to be shared. So I hope in some way this can be shared in another platform, give others the opportunity to hear this. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
yes, I absolutely second that. It's so important to hear these stories. It's inspiring not just to those of us who are in journalism, but to the entire community, really. So thank you all so much again. Anyone else? More questions, more comments?
Oh, I have little family members I see watching.
I have my hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and take the platform if that's okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Oh, I just personally, this is Paulette. I just personally wanted to say thank you, ladies. You never get a chance to hear enough of how much the community appreciates your work. Every last one of you have made a huge impact on not just Western New York, but globally, because I know people read the Challenger outside of the city. They see the television pieces that Claudine do outside the city. They listen to Waffle outside the city. So thank you for keeping us, Buffalo, on the map for some of the things that we're doing. So continue to fight and keep doing what you do. Love you all, ladies. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank
Thank you.
you, Paulette, for all you've done.
You.
Paulette used to work at Channel 2 at one point, and she was in production. And Paulette, if I'm not mistaken, weren't you the only person of color in production for years?
You got it.
Yeah. And so even to this day, you mentioned the name Paulette Harris here. I could open the door and say Paulette Harris, and they're like, "Where is she? Where is she?" But talk about true to yourself, but true to her craft. And she was true to her craft, and she knew her craft, right? So, I believe in excellence without excuse, and that's something I think that I had in my mind when I was doing articles, even for the Challenger. We want to be excellent. Um, and that's for everybody. We should want to be excellent, and we shouldn't be sorry about it. That's good. Excellence without excuse. Go for it. And Paulette was one of those behind the scenes.
Beautiful. And thank you so much, Paulette, for being in the room as well. And thank you for all that you have contributed to the city. We are grateful for you. All right, I see a couple of raised hands. If who wants to chime in next? I'm sorry, I don't see your name. Who raised your hand first? It's got my name for for some reason up there, but please unmute your mic.
Well, I just had a question for Ms. Banks. The Challenger is also digital now? Am I correct?
Oh, we have a website. We have
Okay.
social media. My daughter handles that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how can I access that? Because I saw that in the Facebook
That is
ad.
good question. I am so out of
I know. That's okay. That's
but
okay.
they're handling that. Wait, Leah's giving me the information now. Okay, for the website is Buff BUFF Challenger News. Buff CH buffchalnews.com. BUFFCHAL
News.com. Okay.
And
Thank you so much.
and she does all the other stuff. Social media is the Challenger News.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a print girl. Okay.
Okay.
All right, we have another raised hand. I see one. I guess not, but either way, last call. Otherwise, we will wrap up. Which I wish we could keep this going all night, but I understand it is a work night still and folks have things to do. But to wrap up, I would like to, okay, just want to read a comment we have here. Michelle COC Adams says, I love the work you're all doing and I'm so inspired by learning more about your journeys. Buffalo is lucky to have you. I and probably everyone else in this Zoom seconds that. Thank you, Michelle, for putting that.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And to wrap up, I would like to bring in another very special lady, the one who helped put all this together, my incredible vice president. You may know her as Adri V, the go-getter. Thank you so much. I want to pass it over to you to help us say good night and just to really, bring it home. This was really such a wonderful celebration. And again, just I want to give my gratitude to all three of you and to everyone for being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Jazz, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for being able to interview these heavy hitters we have, who they are, we are because they have been able to forge this path for us. And when we thought about putting together a panel for Women's History Month, who else better would it be the women who are in media in their respective places and spaces, who have truly been pioneering it and leading a path for each and every one of us. So the full circle moment when Claudine brought it all together for us to say my space and being able to contribute to the Challenger, and then being able to be at WUFO, and now she sits in the chair and we get a chance to hear her share stories. It is a beautiful thing, because growing up as a young Black girl in a community, I look to these women as well. And so you have been an inspiration to us as much as, an inspiration to each other, and still inspiring us. And you're being able to share your story, I believe for me and many others who have already expressed it in here, is moving and is going to help us continue to move forward, especially as the landscape of media is changing. And I think you said it best in regards to making sure at this time we have to share our stories, and who else better can do it but us. So again, I just want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your talent. And thank you so much for consistently amplifying our voices as you continue to use your voice to do so. So again, on behalf of the BABJ, we just thank you, ladies, and thank you to each and every one of you who have decided to show up and to hear the history as they continue to, show us a new way to be able to produce and create this media the best way we can for each other.
Yes, incredible words. Thank you so much. And I agree with that. A lot of times we hear the story of, I didn't see anyone that looked like me when I grew up. But because of you all being at the forefront, we don't have to say that. We had examples growing up here in the city of Buffalo of incredible women who went to where we knew we wanted to go. So yes, AG, I agree with you so much about that. Thank you for being the representation all these years, ladies, and for all that you have done and continue to do for our community. We are so indebted to you. And I just want to, throw out another nod to keep that we're keeping the celebration of Women's History Month going. And I want to give a shout out to my VP for more Black woman excellence, everyone, next Friday. The Go Getter, the 8th annual Go Getter Mix and Mingle is happening. So please purchase your tickets. There are incredible women being honored who are doing wonderful things in our community and in the city. Please come out, show your support. And again, I just want to thank everyone for being here, but a special thank you to our 3 panelists, just from the bottom of my heart, for all that you have done. I can't express it enough, just for being the example and the standard. And thank you for sharing your stories, because they're so important.
Well, thank you for having us. And I think we all just have to remember we have to sometimes lean upon one another and be there for one another. So, whether it's Sheila, Al-Nisa, um, all of us, we just have to, help one another, right? That's the only way we can lift ourselves up and lift up humanity.
Yes, so true.
So much for having us. And I just want to tell people, you got to dream without limitations on it. Dreams do come true. God, it will definitely, get in the fight with you and let you dream as big as your mind can possibly let you know. And before you know it, you're in 1, 2, 3 cities, and your craft is continuing to go on, and you're still sharing your narrative.
Well, thank you. It's been an honor really to be among you, to watch you all grow. And I just say the struggle continues. We just have to stay in the fight and not lose sight of the goal. And it can't be a selfish goal.
So true. Now more than ever. So true.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Happy Women's History Month to all my amazing women in the room tonight. I love this. I love you all. I love us. I feel so full right now. And we just thank you for supporting the Buffalo Association of Black Journalists. Everyone, please stay tuned to what we have coming up next. Every single month, we're going to be doing something like this for you. So keep up with us, nabj-buffalo.org. Follow us on our social medias, and we look forward to seeing you for the next third Thursday. Thank you again so much.
Thank you, guys.
Al-Nisa.
Bye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for doing this. Bye, Adri V.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.